I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall not commit adultery. My name is Scott Elder. I've been attending community for a little over 20 years, and I'm a pastor elder here. It's easy for me, I think like a lot of people, to reduce my understanding of the seventh commandment to a single prohibition of just abstaining from sexual immorality with someone other than my spouse. Obviously, Jesus raises the bar on that requirement in his Sermon on the Mount, where he extends that prohibition to our thought life and the things that we're thinking about. And yet, as I was reflecting on this I think we can say that it even goes beyond that. I see some parallels between our relationship to God in the first commandment, as well as our relationships to our spouses in the seventh commandment. With respect to God, anything or any time that we are placing something above our relationship with God, or there's something in our lives that takes precedence over God, we call that idolatry. And I think in a similar way, anytime there is something in our lives that detracts or prevents us from really fulfilling the God-ordained role that we have as a spouse, anytime we're involved in a behavior like that, I think we can many times classify it as adultery. On a more severe level, my experience with this came about when I was growing up, when I was in high school. It was the summer after the year that I graduated from high school. I was coming home from my summer job, and I walked in the house, and the house was empty. And I came upon a note that was written from my dad that said, "Scott, I can no longer live this way. I've decided to move out." And it fell to me to tell my mom that my dad had moved out. We discovered after the fact that he was in an adulterous relationship and had been in the past with the same woman. And what I saw in him was somebody who was feeling the full weight of being in sin. And then what followed continued to be just an incredible lesson for me as I saw how God worked in my mom's life and in my dad's life, that really illustrates the need for the commandment, the beauty of the commandment. So at the time, my mom was seeing a Christian counselor, and one of the passages, or I'd say the passage that he gave to her to reflect on and encourage her, was Psalm 40. And it reads, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. He drew me up from the pit of destruction, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord." And it was amazing to me, again, to see how God was walking my mom through that process, because she returned to the Lord in a new and fresh way, was placing her faith in him. She was waiting on the Lord, and he was just blessing her in that process with a unique joy and peace and strength. And at the same time, my dad was just suffering under the weight of his sin. I think about Benjamin's analogy of the multi-tool and how the law does a lot of different things. And I've thought about that in the context of this situation, because at the same time that he was using the multi-tool of his law to build into my mom and to encourage her and change her, at the same time he was using it to deconstruct my dad and to convict him of his sin and to draw him back. God did a work in that relationship that, as we look back, it's truly something that was difficult to walk through, but we can thank God for it because of the work that he did. And the relationship that they had after that restoration was so much more beautiful than the one that they had before. And so I see the goodness of the command, because God has created relationships, specifically marriage, for a very specific reason, and that's for mutual sanctification and for his glory. And yet we get the benefit of that when we operate inside his command, when we are abiding by his command according to the design of marriage and valuing that relationship the way he's called us to do so, then it's a beautiful thing. And we get to enjoy relationships in a unique and special way that is truly supernatural, that doesn't happen outside of Christ, outside of the Spirit, outside of his commands.